The highly anticipated second season of I Alone Level Up has finally arrived. At the end of last season, Sung successfully transitioned into the Shadow Monarch, and the change brought about more than just a shift in demeanor. His appearance also transformed significantly. Sung, returning from the dungeon, slept until the afternoon, only to be woken by his sister's phone call, reminding him that it was Parent-Teacher Day. Upon seeing her brother, Sung's sister Aoi was stunned, wondering when he had become so handsome. His new charm also caught the attention of female classmates, and even a teacher who wanted to engage more with Sung. The teacher first praised Aoi for her excellent performance at school, and noted that her grades were good enough for medical school. Then, the conversation took a turn, asking Sung if he would let Aoi become a hunter if she awakened one day. Sung immediately answered no, but the teacher asked him to counsel a student who was determined to become a hunter, Rin, who was also Aoi's good friend and previously brought in by Kenta to make up numbers. Sung agreed, but instead of discouraging her, he took Rin to a dungeon entrance. However, they were not there to conquer it, but to observe a large guild's training process. They were at a C-class portal, and surprisingly, there was an A-class hunter, Uehara, who was the captain of the raid team. Uehara was displeased to see Sung and Rin, both E-class, because he was introduced by Director Anne, and now had to ensure their safety. The team consisted of 1 A-class hunter, 5 B-class hunters, and 2 C-class hunters. Sung was disappointed. He had hoped to expose Rin to the harsh realities of dungeon crawling to dissuade her from becoming a hunter, but the team seemed overpowered for that. Unexpectedly, just as they entered the portal, which was initially a blue C-class, it suddenly turned into a red gate. Sung immediately tried to pull Rin out, but the door had already closed. He had no choice but to ask Director An to quickly call for reinforcements. When they opened their eyes again, they were in a snowy field. Uehara, the most experienced, quickly realized the situation was dire. A red portal meant they were in a special dungeon that completely cut off outside communication. The only ways out were to defeat the boss, or wait for the dungeon to go out of control, with no outside intervention possible. Moreover, they would encounter monsters far beyond anticipated levels. As soon as Sung finished speaking, 2 ice arrows hurtled through the air. One struck and killed a C-class team member, while Sung caught the other with one hand, protecting Rin in his arms. Only then did everyone notice the ice sprite in the tree, making a throat-slitting gesture to taunt them. A true white specter. Seeing that the enemy didn't continue to attack, Uehara, the highest rank, quickly took charge of the team. With the situation critical, he ordered everyone to follow his commands to maximize survival chances. He split the group into 2. Higher levels could follow him, and the lower levels could stay and face death. Thus, Sung, Rin, and the remaining C-class hunter were left behind. Unexpectedly, a B-class female team member, Satsuki, volunteered to stay. She had noticed Sung's actions and assessed that his abilities far exceeded an E-class, likely A-class or higher. Uehara took a few B-class members along the main path, while Sung and the others headed into the forest. Uehara's group soon encountered bear tracks and assumed the others wouldn't survive. However, Uehara felt something was off. Despite having B and C-class members, he subconsciously felt as though E-class Sung was the leader. The next second, several polar bears emerged from the woods and surrounded them. After warning his teammates, Uehara raised his shield to block a massive blow from a bear whose paw shattered upon impact. He then swung his axe, cutting a polar bear in half. Meanwhile, Sung led his team deeper into the forest. Satsuki noticed the claw marks, indicating the forest was polar bear territory. They should have left quickly, but Sung insisted on going deeper, saying it was safer to face polar bears than a sentient ice sprite. Satsuki realized he had a point. Concerned about the cold affecting the 2 female members, Sung surprisingly pulled out several cotton jackets from his storage space. Satsuki and the C-class hunter felt they were with the right person. Even higher-level hunters could only summon a few low-level items at best, and they had never seen such subspace magic before. Rin couldn't help but ask who Sung really was. Sung simply patted her head, assuring her that since he brought her in, he would protect her, and he expected the same discretion from the others. Just then, a polar bear appeared. Sung signaled to the others not to worry, and switched his title to Increase Stats by 40% when fighting beast-type magical creatures. Meanwhile, the leader of the White Tiger Guild, Taiga, also arrived at the portal. However, even as an S-class hunter, he could not break through, and could only pin his hopes on A-class hunter Uehara. During this, Director An informed Taiga that Sung was inside and suspected him of being a second awakener. Just then, S-class hunter Masato arrived. who is the older brother of C-class hunter Hayato, previously killed by Sung in the dungeon. Masato had returned to the country to avenge his brother, and unexpectedly found Sung had entered the red portal, leaving it uncertain whether his luck was good or bad. As everyone worried about their survival, Sung had already single-handedly defeated all the polar bears, even leveling up in the process. They even shared grilled bear meat together. Despite defeating many bears, Sung felt he hadn't exercised enough and ventured deeper into the forest alone. This time, he deployed his Shadow Legion to test the waters. While ordinary shadow soldiers couldn't match a polar bear in one-on-one combat, they had infinite numbers and were supported by powerful magical soldiers, leaving Sung quite satisfied with his legion's combat abilities, though it drained his mana quickly. After dealing with all the lesser bears, the alpha bear finally made its appearance, its roar formidable. Its claws, sharp as steel nails, easily shattered the shadow soldiers. Sung's mana was quickly depleted, leaving only Jaegerit in the fray. The knight-like Jaegerit, obeying his master's command, slowly approached the Bear King. As the bear lunged, Jaegerit turned ghostly and stabbed through the bear's shoulder. The bear instantly turned and swiped at the airborne Jaegerit, who leapt up and with a crushing force drove his sword into the Bear King's body, slicing open its flesh. Landing swiftly, Jaegerit spun and delivered a sweeping blow, bringing the Bear King to its knees. Still defiant, the bear erupted with electrical energy, but before it could release it, Jaegerit decapitated it with a sword strike. Sung was relieved he hadn't faced Jaegerit in a final duel, but seeing such formidable strength humbly kneeling before him, mixed his feelings with relief. On the other hand, Uhura's situation was dire. Played and toyed with by the malicious ice sprites, he was the only one to survive, but he ended up mentally broken. How terrifying is Sung's new skill? After killing all the polar bears, including the boss, with the command of Arise, Sung extracted their shadows and added them to his shadow army. 3 days had passed inside the dungeon, but only 3 hours had elapsed outside. Taiga had been guarding the entrance the whole time. Masato, unable to wait any longer and thinking Sung was likely dead inside, was about to leave when a question struck him. Sung wasn't a member of the White Tiger Guild, so why did he enter with their attack team? Chief-An explained that Sung was his friend and just wanted to experience a C-rank mission. Masato grabbed Chief-An by the collar in frustration, knowing well that Chief-An always sought out new talents. Taiga intervened just as a fight was about to break out between the two S-rank hunters. At that critical moment, Akira from the Oversight Department appeared and mediated, calming both parties. Akira also explained to Masato that 2 months ago, Sung was still an E-rank hunter, and that Hayato indeed died at the hands of a magical beast. Masato was skeptical, suspecting that if not Sung, then the wealthy Kenta was to blame, using this as a pretext to pursue Sung. Just as he dismissed the idea, Masato received a message and left abruptly with a harsh parting remark. Meanwhile, Uehara, who had been wandering in the snowy wasteland, finally came across the bodies of those polar bears. He couldn't believe such low-level E-rank hunters could do this. Soon after, he saw the same hunters he despised, chatting and laughing around a campfire. Uehara lost his composure, enraged that they had warm clothing, tents, and food, convinced they had secretly hoarded the supplies. In his fury, he confronted them, accusing them of hoarding gear and causing the deaths of other team members. He then turned his anger towards Satsuki, convinced she knew about it. Uehara drew his sword, preparing to force a confession about who was hiding supplies. He had suspected Sung all along. Just as Uehara was about to charge, Sung performed a head pat kill, throwing Uehara far away. Sung remarked that it was ironic how Uehara, who pushed his comrades to death, brought trouble to him. Suddenly, a group of malevolent ice sprites appeared on the snowy ground, led by the boss, the Ice King, who remarked that among the trash, there was someone surprisingly useful. Sung instinctively responded, shocking everyone present. He could understand the language of magical beasts. Sung himself was puzzled and speculated it was likely due to the system's influence. The Ice King had heard from a sentinel that there was a master among the humans and wanted to test his strength against Sung. Before the Ice King could finish speaking, the sentinel's head flew off. Next, it was the Ice King's turn. Sung killed the horse with one strike. The Ice King, finding it amusing, leapt away and questioned Sung. "You're clearly not human, so why mix with them?" He added that they kept hearing a voice telling them to kill humans, but they heard nothing when facing Sung. Sung wondered if this was also a system command, as he had become a player and no longer belonged to humanity. Unaware of Sung's internal thoughts, the Ice King started to negotiate. He offered to spare Sung if he handed over the humans behind him. Sung dodged the question and asked who the Ice King and his kind were and why they fought humans. Just as the Ice King began to say, "We are," his body flickered like a hologram, and he repeated the question. Sung straightforwardly refused. The Ice King urged him to think carefully, noting Sung was at a numerical disadvantage. Sung smirked. "Who's at a disadvantage?" In the next second, his shadow army appeared, turning the tide with countless shadow soldiers and polar bears. However, the Ice King was unfazed, waved his hand, and his minions charged forward, with the shadow army meeting them head-on. As the chaos ensued, Satsuki and 2 others slipped away from the battlefield, only to be ambushed by ice sprites. Sung teleported instantly, catching an arrow and swiftly cutting down 3 ice sprites, but the Ice King charged at him, crushing several shadows along the way. Sung felt the gap in their strengths and doubted that even joining forces with Jaegerit would match his opponent. He desired greater combat power. As they faced off, the Ice King introduced himself as Baruka. Sung then materialized his own weapon, and they both charged at each other. Baruka swung his sword at Sung, who jumped into the air and then dove down with his dagger aimed at Baruka. After dodging, Baruka stepped on the dagger, but Sung instantly retracted and reappeared, catching Baruka off guard with a slash. However, he was quickly kicked away by Baruka in the next moment. But Sung was not alone. A group of shadow magic soldiers were nearby. A massive fireball hurled at Baruka exploded upon impact. At that moment, Uehara regained consciousness, picking up his sword with hatred for Sung. Meanwhile, Baruka emerged from the smoke. Sung, caught between the two, eventually summoned Jaegerit, who swiftly struck Uehara down. After Uehara's death, Sung immediately extracted his shadow. Surprisingly, the shadow Uehara appeared formidable, wielding a huge axe in one hand and a sturdy shield in the other. With a roar, he sent Baruka flying. Sung named him King Ayin. This move infuriated Baruka, who began to grapple with Ayin. Baruka found Ayin's movements clumsy and encouraged Sung and Jaegerit to join the fray. Sung and the 2 monsters, along with the shadow, fought fiercely, their actions blurring to the others. Baruka struggled against the 3, and Sung, appearing suddenly behind him, pierced his shoulder with a sword, already a move to avoid vital spots. During this, Baruka's minions were completely annihilated by the shadow army. Enraged, Baruka narrowly avoided a dagger thrown by Sung, which was skillfully manipulated to return for a backstab. In desperation, Baruka swung his sword to block, shattering the short sword. Then, Ayin appeared behind Sung, and the nearby mage focused their magic on Baruka. Still, Baruka survived the blast. Just as he declared he would kill them all, his waist suddenly split open, bleeding profusely as Sung, revealing himself from invisibility, drove his dagger deep into Baruka. Sung then stepped aside as Ain's massive hammer came crashing down, finally determining the victor. However, it seemed Ain wasn't very bright. Sung rejoined his team, and the dungeon's exit portal appeared, indicating that the Ice King was indeed the dungeon boss. While the group celebrated, Sung attempted to extract Baruka's shadow, but, surprisingly, the extraction failed. 7 hours had passed outside when Taiga had just declared his intention to wait there until dawn. Then, several figures emerged from the portal, but Uehara, whom he had been expecting, was not among them. The 4 survivors, other than Satsuki, were all E-rank hunters. Taiga wanted to know what exactly had happened inside, but Sung didn't bother to engage with him, and planned to take Rin straight home. Taiga grabbed Sung's shoulder, explaining that 6 members of his White Tiger Guild were missing from this mission, and as the person in charge, he needed to ask Sung some questions. Sung looked back at him coldly. Even though it was true, Sung had also saved the remaining 2. Shouldn't Taiga, as the leader, thank him first? Surprisingly, Taiga actually let go and bowed in gratitude to Sung. After Sung and Rin left, Taiga instructed Chief An to recruit Sung into their guild at all costs. Sung took Rin home first. After such an ordeal, Rin had clearly become Sung's little fangirl. However, Sung was not in a great mood, as he had failed to gain a major power by subduing the Ice King, obtaining only a dagger. The next morning, Kenta arrived fully armed to pick up his elder brother, and also picked up Rin along the way. Rin affectionately called out, "Brother Sung," causing Kenta's pupils to dilate. Sung was concerned that Rin hadn't slept well, as she had only returned home at dawn. Listening to their conversation, Kenta grew increasingly suspicious. Were they in that kind of relationship? But Rin was still a minor. Sung showcased a new skill in front of Kenta for the first time, leaving the wealthy heir utterly astonished. With the Shadow Legion at his command, Sung no longer needed to personally handle low-level dungeons. They easily dispatched the monsters, and even mined, taking over the tasks Kenta used to do. Feeling useless, Kenta was downcast until Jaegerit handed him a pile of magic crystals. Meanwhile, in a dungeon in M country, a wild-looking man spoke to a group of hunters in broken English, saying, "I am human. I want to go home." With the Shadow Legion, Sung's dungeon clearing became much more efficient. He quickly fulfilled his agreement with Kenta, who was next scheduled to take a written exam to obtain a guildmaster's license and then negotiate with his father. Sung mentioned he needed to travel to some places and might be out of contact for a few days, which Kenta mistakenly took as Sung growing tired of him. After a few drinks, Kenta opened up about having an older brother who didn't like him. Over time, he had come to see Sung as a brother. Sung poured himself a drink, clinked glasses with Kenta, and declared, "From today, you are my brother." Kenta, moved to tears, called him Big Brother and drank his glass in one go, then began enthusiastically serving meat to his new big brother. The wild man was also extracted from the dungeon. He claimed to be a foreign hunter named Lihan, who had been trapped in a teleportation gate 10 years ago and found himself in a portal connected to M country. The staff couldn't rule out the possibility that he was a humanoid monster, so they called Masato, an S-rank hunter from H country, who had left upon receiving this notification. The next morning, Sung packed his bags and told his sister he was going on a trip with a friend for a week. Aoi teasingly asked when he got a girlfriend, but Sung had already left. He headed to the demon city surrounded by flames. Although he had defeated the gatekeeper Cerberus and obtained the gate key previously, he had judged himself not strong enough to open the gate at that time. Now, with his level 3 times higher, he returned to create the elixir of life. Without hesitation, he inserted the key into the gate. As soon as he entered, the gate shut behind him, and the system issued the first task, to collect 10,000 demon souls. Despite the daunting number, Sung was determined. Whether it was 10,000 or 100,000, he was ready to take them on. On the other side, Kenta, having obtained his license, went to negotiate with his father. He expressed his firm disagreement with his brother's plan to have an outsider as the guildmaster. Unexpectedly, his father brought up Sung's name, noting that Sung had come out unscathed from 3 crisis events and had participated in all the sudden missions hosted by Kenta. In the recent incident with a red portal at the White Tiger Guild, it was Sung who led the survivors to safety. Without needing to investigate, his father guessed that Kenta had obtained the guild master's license with Sung's help. Nevertheless, he was willing to give his younger son a chance on the condition that Sung be brought into their guild. Kenta agreed. Meanwhile, Sung had slain mountains of demons, none of which could be harvested. He then obtained an item, a permit for further entry, usable only in the transfer magic circle on the first layer, leading to the second layer of the demon city. The dungeon was enormous, essentially an entire city. Sung summoned the White Bear boss as a means of transport, naming it Tank, and using it to bulldoze through demons blocking the way. While Sung was on his demon hunting spree, Shizuku was troubled. Although her beauty after a bath stunned others, she was preoccupied with Shin's words. She had previously questioned why the information about winged ants wasn't made public. Shin explained that it was the association's directive, and that disclosing it would only cause public panic. Their goal was to become the largest guild domestically, accumulating power and taking on corresponding responsibilities, leaving Shizuku without a reply. Sung, continuing his ascent, found that the strength of the demons was mostly in the early B rank. The higher he climbed, the stronger they became. However, by focusing on defeating demons possessing permits, he found it relatively easy to ascend. If the structure of the demon city was similar to the original tower, it might also have 100 levels. Reaching the top could significantly increase his strength, but his provisions were limited. He had told his sister he would be gone for a week, so time was also limited. He had to speed up his demon slaying. Finally, after collecting 10,000 demon souls, he encountered the red-lettered boss, Greedy Vulcan, on the 50th floor. Sung let the Shadow Legion handle the minions while he took on the boss. As their soldiers charged forward and the magic soldiers launched the first fireball to start the battle, Ain wielded his shield and Jaegerit moved swiftly to strike. Sung was not worried about them, but was curious why the large boss hadn't moved yet. Just as he prepared to initiate an attack in a blink, Vulcan had teleported in front of him and swung his massive club down. Sung immediately dodged and punched the enemy, sending him flying. He was surprised by the power of his fist, but Vulcan quickly got up and began roaring. Then he charged at Sung, who couldn't dodge in time. Ain threw his shield to Sung, who used it to block Vulcan's attack. Despite being surprised by the giant's agility, Sung quickly seized the opportunity. He threw the shield to block an attack, used a stone to maneuver behind the enemy, and drew his short sword to strike. However, Vulcan anticipated his move, turned around, and swung his club. Luckily, Sung quickly shifted to defense. He also noticed the enemy's weakness was his head. Now, he needed to counter the creature's tricky movements. As Sung ran, he thought of a plan. Ahead was a broken building. Sung sped up and climbed it as if it were flat ground, then jumped to a section of the building that was slanting downward, creating a blind spot. From the thick dust, he dove down and nearly split Vulcan's upper body in two with his sword. The giant body crashed to the ground. Sung successfully killed the lower-level ruler, Vulcan, and obtained a fragment of the World Tree. Meanwhile, Masato started interrogating Li Han. Masato, annoyed at being interrupted from his leisure to work, listened as Li Han asked about the extent of human knowledge on teleportation gates and monsters. Li Han then warned that dungeons, teleportation gates, and monsters were merely precursors to a terrible disaster power awakening, and his purpose was to prevent this calamity. Masato arrogantly didn't believe these ghost stories. He argued that with many hunters combined, they could tackle any challenge. Li Han interrupted him, saying that numbers mean nothing against that force. They would only be consumed and exploited. Masato was busy checking Li Han's background, discovering that Li Han had a wife and 2 children, one named Sung. Masato laughed, telling Li Han his son was already dead and that Li Han could deliver any last words directly in hell if he wished. At the same time, Sung had easily killed another undead boss. His father, Li Han, took only a moment to kill S-rank hunter Masato. Sung's journey in the Demon City ended on the 75th floor, not due to lack of strength, but because of insufficient food. Nonetheless, the loot was significant. He obtained earrings from Vulcan and a necklace from a skeletal undead, both valuable and part of a set. The system indicated there was still another boss, along with a greed pearl that could double the magical power of his magic soldiers. In his mission reward, the cursed random treasure chest he chose yielded another key. Most importantly, he obtained 2 crucial ingredients: the World Tree Fragment and Echo Forest Spring Water. He needed one more ingredient to create the life elixir to save his mother. Sung was determined to succeed next time. Sung and Shizuku finally met. After exiting the demon castle, the only ingredient left for making the life elixir was purified demon lord's blood, which significantly boosted Sung's level. To continue leveling up, he needed to participate in high-level raids, making his current E-rank hunter status insufficient. Therefore, Sung decided to re-evaluate his hunter rank and went to the Hunter Association the next day. Besides the evaluators, there were scouts from various guilds present, including a staff member from the White Tiger Guild, who quickly informed their boss, Taiga, upon seeing Sung. Taiga rushed over personally. While waiting for his evaluation, Sung noticed a nervous man being comforted by others who said that any rank above D would attract guild invitations and ensure a stable life. Sung felt mixed emotions. When it was his turn, the lady at the counter asked him to place his hand on a black crystal. His immense magical power caused the machine to malfunction, displaying an error. The director tried retesting, but the error persisted. An experienced director excitedly concluded it wasn't a malfunction. The machine simply couldn't measure Sung's power because it exceeded the detectable limit. This phenomenon had occurred only 9 times before in their country. Undoubtedly, Sung became the country's 10th S-rank hunter. Meanwhile, Hunter Association President Shin was trying to extract information from Akira about the person who had conquered the Red Portal. Akira was evasive, but both heard the commotion and went to see what was happening. News of Sung possibly being an S-rank hunter had already spread outside. Everyone was thrilled to witness the birth of the 10th S-rank hunter. At that moment, Shin and Akira arrived. Sung, who had heard of Shin, the pinnacle of fire mages and known as the ultimate weapon, was unfazed. Sung's nickname, the weakest weapon, originated from this. When Shin approached with an offer, Sung ignored it completely, leaving Shin flustered as his reputation had no effect. As everyone pondered differently, Sung had already left the hall. Taiga, arriving just a step too late, was visibly desperate. Shin recognized how much Taiga valued the man he had just missed, and confirmed that Sung was the non-guild individual who had conquered the Red Portal. However, Shin said nothing and just walked past Taiga, leaving the scene. Sung returned to his mother's side, only to encounter Akira waiting outside the hospital room like a hawk. Akira hadn't expected his day to involve monitoring Sung, though not for criminal reasons. Sung ignored him until Akira mentioned that someone wanted to meet him. To Sung's surprise, the man who walked out of the corridor was none other than the president of the Hunter Association, Gotu. Gotu had already acknowledged Sung's S-rank status. The public announcement of a re-evaluation was merely a strategy to secure time to speak with this prodigy first. The Hunter Association is vast, but it lacks top-tier hunters. Most prefer joining large guilds for bigger earnings. Akira, one of the top in the association, was only A rank. Thus, Gotu wanted to invite Sung to join, and even offered him one of the most significant positions in the association. It's well known that the real power in this country no longer lies with the government, but with the hunters who protect the people from demons, particularly the top 5 guilds that maintain a delicate balance. Sung's joining any side would disrupt this balance, and the Hunter Association aims to become a 6th force to control them, for the country's sake. Gotu, the country's first S-rank awakened and still powerful despite being over 80 and long retired from the front line, saw potential benefits for Sung in joining. However, Sung declined, stating his preference for fighting, and that dungeons were where he belonged. Gotu saw determination in Sung's eyes, which reignited his own long-lost fervor to battle alongside such a spirited young man. Regrettably, his age was a limiting factor. Gotu did not push further, perhaps out of respect for Sung's autonomy, choosing instead to invite Akira for a drink, appreciating the young man's free spirit. The main reason Sung was unwilling to join the association is that it primarily handles D and E rank dungeons. His urgent priority is to level up quickly to cure his mother's illness, which requires fighting in higher level dungeons. Meanwhile, Masato had finally woken up, but Li-Han, who had easily defeated him, was nowhere to be found. Masato was furious, feeling powerless against him. Li-Han had warned him to stay away from his family, threatening that he could not escape his grasp. The more he was warned, the more Masato was determined to obtain a powerful artifact for revenge. Artifacts are artificial relics that even skilled craftsmen cannot produce, making them extremely valuable. Sung checked the auction listings, but everything was beyond his budget. However, he had a greed pearl that could fetch a high price. Being an E-rank hunter, others would surely question how he obtained such an item. If he had access to an A-rank portal, he could use that as a pretext, but as an E-rank he wasn't qualified for high-level raids. At this moment, Sung noticed that the Hunter Association was recruiting miners for an A-rank portal. The association president was still reviewing Sung's information, increasingly impressed by the young man who supported his entire family alone. Unfortunately, Sung had already joined a raid task with the Hunter Association, albeit just a mining team. Gotu was puzzled and found Sung increasingly enigmatic. Sung was already waiting at the portal for a major raid on a high-level dungeon where teamwork was essential. There were attack teams, mining teams, and recovery teams. The attack team was currently at work inside. Unexpectedly, Shin himself appeared, elegantly snapping his fingers. A fireball followed his gesture, exploding into a powerful wave of flames that incinerated the monsters. Following that, attacks wrapped in flames flew from the depths, but Shin stood still as tanks with shields quickly formed a line in front of him to block all impacts. Shin led his team forward, reminding Shizuku, who is sensitive to smells, to be cautious of the burnt odor. Soon, the attack team emerged unscathed, leaving Sung impressed by the strength of this ultimate weapon. However, his attention was more on Shizuku, who walked out behind the others. Sung couldn't help but stare, which Shizuku quickly noticed, prompting Sung to hastily conceal his presence. After the attack team, it was time for the mining and recovery teams to work. Upon entering, Sung sensed the presence of a boss, a monster more formidable than those in the demon castle. He longed to test his skills, but as an E-rank hunter, even within the mining team, he faced discrimination. However, a stern glance from him silenced any challengers. Sung had plenty of strength for mining, and once the others took a break, he seized the opportunity to venture deeper and soon reached the boss room. Reason told him not to defeat the boss, as doing so would close the portal and cause significant losses for the Hunter Association. Yet, he couldn't suppress his inner desire and thought a little probing wouldn't hurt. Before he could act, he heard a woman's voice. "What are you doing there?" It was Shizuku. The third time Shizuku saw Sung, she exclaimed, "Bro, you smell really good." Sung was about to confront the boss when he heard the voice of Shizuku, an S-rank female hunter, asking what he was doing there. Not wanting a confrontation, Sung quickly sheathed his dagger, claiming he had gotten lost and wandered there by accident. Shizuku scolded the reckless mining team member, but noticed he had been holding a weapon just moments before. As Sung walked past her, Shizuku paused, then ran in front of him and sniffed intensely. She was right. This man didn't have the usual hunter's smell, and even smelled pleasant. Shizuku remembered Sung's name and gave him a few more warnings before letting him go. Later, while mining in the dungeon, Sung heard from others that Shizuku had a unique constitution that made her uncomfortable with the scent of other hunters. He immediately recalled her reaction and, considering what the Ice King had said, it was clear this was related to him being a player. But what exactly is a player? Due to Sung's efficiency, the mining team finished early that day. The team leader offered him a job, but he was only interested in part-time work. The leader then asked if he could come again the next day for a continuous raid on A and C ranked dungeons. Sung was interested, especially since the next check wasn't until the day after. Tomorrow's team would be the second attack team, capable of raiding A-ranked dungeons, proof of the Hunters Guild's top status in the country. That evening, Shizuku began to gather information on Sung and unexpectedly learned that Shin had also inquired about him the previous day, but all information had been blocked by the Hunters Association. Clearly, there was something special about this man. Shizuku became increasingly restless. The next morning, Sung met up with the mining team. Everyone greeted him warmly, reminding him of his old teammates. They mined in the C-ranked dungeon first, and miner Sung was as impressive as ever, finishing the work by noon, allowing for some rest before entering the A-ranked dungeon in the afternoon. Then, Ki-hoon, the leader of the second attack team, came over, wanting to borrow someone from the mining team to join the attack team as a porter in the more dangerous dungeon, with appropriate compensation. Unfortunately, as the miners were lower-level hunters, no one wanted to risk entering an A-ranked dungeon. At this moment, Sung raised his hand. The seniors thought he was just young and naive and tried to dissuade him, but Sung insisted on going with them. Hearing that he was an E-rank hunter, Captain Ki-hoon was surprisingly pleased. Today's A-rank portal was bigger than yesterday's, but had less magical energy. Team 2, led by Ki-hoon, included 6 A-rank and 3 B-rank members. As they entered the portal, Sung felt an ominous premonition similar to the one he had with the red portal. A nearby sister noticed his unease and comforted him. Ki-hoon, focused on his own goals, hoped to complete this raid and be officially appointed as team captain. However, the next moment, everyone sensed danger ahead and immediately prepared for battle. The first to attack were a pack of dire wolves. Although fast, the hunters present were skilled and quickly dealt with them. Yet, the question arose, why were C-rank dire wolves in an A-rank dungeon? Sung noticed collars around the wolves' necks, suggesting they were being bred. As he spoke, a group of high-level orcs emerged from the darkness. One casually threw a spear that shattered Ki-hoon's shield. Another shield-bearer stepped up to tank, but provocations failed. The giants targeted the rear guard. Fortunately, a mage acted swiftly to repel them, though the fire caused little damage. Another mage used ropes to bind them temporarily. A summoner called for reinforcements as everyone fought desperately. The healers were overwhelmed. Despite their efforts, the difference in strength and numbers was too great. As the giants closed in, Ki-hoon quickly directed the team to split into groups of 3. During this, a B-rank teammate's arm was severed, but the bespectacled girl promptly assisted, and a high-level healer restored the arm. The next second, an orc appeared behind them. The healer closed her eyes, awaiting death, but when she opened them, the orc was being choked in midair, undoubtedly Sung's doing. Sung, concealing his form, moved swiftly across the battlefield, severing the limbs and tendons of the orcs. The hunters only noticed the enemies slowing down. Although unsure what was happening, they seized the opportunity to counterattack vigorously. With Ki-hoon slashing nearly through the leader orc's body, the battle came to an end. Miraculously, no one was severely injured. Everyone sensed something was off, but didn't say much. They let the porter keep his secrets. After all, with a magic caster in their team, how could they not notice Sung's use of invisibility skills? After the battle, the hunters realized something abnormal might be happening in the dungeon. Continuing further seemed unwise. However, as the team leader, everyone awaited Ki-hoon's command. Fortunately, Ki-hoon didn't let his first leadership role cloud his judgment and ordered a retreat without much hesitation. But when they reached the portal, they found it no longer worked. It had been sealed with a high-level barrier. The bespectacled girl tried to break the barrier, but a powerful magic surge from deep within the dungeon suddenly shook all the hunters. Realizing they might never get out if they didn't act quickly, all the magicians joined forces to break the barrier, but inadvertently triggered a curse instead. Meanwhile, a large group of orcs appeared behind them, one of whom seemed to want to negotiate. Ki-hoon stepped forward to talk face-to-face with the orc, which first spoke in an unintelligible language, then switched to human language after being possessed by a more powerful being. The being introduced itself as Kalkakan, a grand sorcerer of the honorable orc tribe, and admitted to blocking the exit. Ki-hoon confirmed that Kalkakan was the most powerful entity there. To carve a path to escape, he agreed to meet with him. Ki-hoon then instructed Sung that they would attack the boss on sight. which would distract Kalkekan and weaken the barrier, allowing Sung a chance to escape and call for help. The healer sister also handed Sung her last words to pass to her family, moving him slightly, though he didn't say much and took the letter. Meanwhile, Shizuku arrived near the portal looking for Sung but learned he had gone inside with the attack team as a porter. At the same time, the hunters followed the orcs to a grand hall where Kalkekan, who had spoken to them earlier, was sitting on a throne. Standing at the portal, Shizuku pondered and finally decided to go in herself. She even borrowed a pickaxe from the mining team leader, as it was an A-rank dungeon, and she couldn't go in empty-handed. On Sung's side, Ki-hoon and the team were stunned to see so many giant orcs. Their first instinct was to prevent them from escaping, especially the four standing next to the Grand Sorcerer. Despite knowing the disparity in strength, Ki-hoon, feeling a sense of duty, decided they must resolve the dungeon boss issue and close the portal. However, a wave of magical energy from the enemy left them all intimidated, fear evident on their faces. Ki-hoon, mustering courage, asked Kalkekan why they were brought here. To their horror, Kalkekan said it was just to kill them one by one for his soldiers' entertainment, treating them like mere insects. This crushed the hunters' spirits and resolve. Still, Ki-hoon commanded everyone to charge with him, but the others were too frightened to move. Only Captain Ki-hoon rushed towards Kalkekan alone. A predictable outcome ensued. After being blocked by a protective barrier, the Grand Sorcerer crushed Ki-hoon to the ground with a heavy gravity spell and tossed him around like a rag doll. Unable to watch any longer, Sung intervened, catching Ki-hoon and setting him aside, asking if he could take on all the beasts himself. Ki-hoon, more than willing, saw Kalkekan magnanimously move the others aside to watch. Sung then stepped forward to face the enemy, his path covered in shadows, summoning an army of shadows for an imminent battle. Meanwhile, Akira had also arrived outside, naturally to inquire about Sung. Seeing such prominent figures continuously seeking out Sung, others began to realize that this man was no ordinary individual. They informed Akira that Sung had gone inside as a porter and that Hunter Shizuku had also just entered. Just as Akira was about to enter, he sensed an unusual aura and immediately ordered another magical power check. On the other side, Shizuku found the bodies of the giants, confirming that something abnormal had happened in the dungeon. Picking up her pickaxe, she hurried deeper into the dungeon. The camera returns to the battlefield where Sung activates his skill, Monarch's Domain, giving all his shadow soldiers a powerful buff. Both sides launch an attack simultaneously. King Ain, wielding a giant axe, shatters over a dozen orcs with a single swing. Jaegerett slices through enemies, beheading them one by one, while Sung quickly dismembers a group of enemies and still has time to assess the combat strength of both sides. The watching hunters exclaim that his movements are just like those of the vice president. The strength of the giant orcs is comparable to A-rank hunters, while the shadow soldiers are about B-rank. Each orc needs to be destroyed 4 to 5 times, so Sung must quickly reduce their numbers. However, the Grand Sorcerer poses a greater threat. Faced with an unexpected attack, Sung focuses his efforts on the boss. Under the control of gravity magic, a barrage of stone fragments rains down like cannonballs, aiming for Sung. Although Sung dodges, many shadow soldiers are destroyed. Clearly, this was also part of the enemy's plan. Flames then erupt throughout the Grand Hall, forcing the hunters to flee. Sung realizes the enemy's strategy, to use vast magic power and long-range area spells to keep him at bay, knowing that mages fear close combat. Meanwhile, outside, the results of the reassessment are in. The portal is extremely close to S rank. Akira immediately contacts Shin and then leads his men into the dungeon to provide support. Inside, the battle rages on. Sung's magic power is more than half depleted, but he quickly drinks a recovery potion. Next, he enters the realm of a necromancer. With a command of Rise, the orcs that were just slain reappear as red shadows joining his forces. How can one fight this? While other soldiers dwindle, Sung's forces only grow. Sung assures the remaining orcs, including Kalkekan, not to worry. They'll soon join his ranks. A flicker of doubt finally crosses the Grand Sorcerer's mind. Could this be? Why is he here? Like the Ice King before him, Kalkekan realized that upon awakening, a single command echoes in his mind: to hunt humans. Anyone who stands in his way must be hunted down. The battle intensifies as Ain and Jaegerett, 2 fierce warriors, take on hundreds. Ordinary orc soldiers can't even withstand a single strike from them. Sung is very pleased with his general's performance. Seeing Sung's advantage, the watching hunters think about joining in to help, but Kalkekan quickly reprimands them before personally stepping down from his throne, vowing to shut Sung up for good. However, his curse magic has no effect on Sung. Several magic soldiers then form a barrier in front of Sung and conjure a fireball that breaks Kalkeken's shield, blasting his mask away, leaving the Grand Sorcerer seething with rage. Shizuku enters at this moment and sees this scene. Confused, she meets up with other hunters, but they are just as clueless about how a porter could be so powerful. Nearby, an infuriated Kalkeken enlarges his body, trying to crush Sung with a single stomp. This oppressive move reminds Sung of a past deity, triggering some unpleasant memories. Without much talk, Kalkeken spews a stream of fire, followed by numerous magic circles extending flames. Unfortunately, these fancy tricks are useless against Sung, who has already teleported above the enemy and plunges his dagger into Kalkeken's eye. He then swings back to a rope, stabilizing his position. The battle's outcome is clear. Without his guards, how could a mage withstand an assassin's stealth attack? Enraged, Kalkeken unleashes a song of fire, setting the entire hall ablaze with flames shooting up from the ground. Sung dodges through the flames, seizing opportunities to counterattack. However, the dagger inflicts limited damage, so he grabs a chain and throws it around the enemy's arms. After tightly binding Kalkeken, he pulls hard, toppling the massive figure. Akira and his group enter at this moment, stunned by Sung's abilities. Shizuku's eyes light up as she looks at Sung and asks Akira who he is. Unfortunately, Akira knows little. Sung approaches Kalkeken, who has returned to his normal size. Even in certain defeat, Kalkeken tries to strike back, but now, Sung doesn't need to act. His former subordinates deliver a crushing blow that ends both the fight and the boss. After killing the boss, Sung modestly refrains from taking the items, but absorbs the shadow. Surprisingly, it's an elite knight-level soldier. Forgetting Kalkeken's original name, Sung casually names him Kiba. Today was truly a fruitful day. Sung was just feeling happy when he turned around to see a group of people approaching him, which made him break out in a sweat. Before he could figure out how to explain, the considerate Akira had someone block for him and then declared that Hunter Sung was their Hunter Association's top secret. He hoped those present would keep today's events confidential. Sung simply followed Akira and left. However, before leaving, Ki-hoon stopped him. Ki-hoon didn't ask why he, with such strength, worked as a porter, but sincerely thanked him. Sung also returned the last words to the healer. Even after everyone had left, Shizuku hadn't managed to speak to Sung and worried that he might find her strange. Meanwhile, Shin also received a report. Regardless, their Hunter Corporation now owed Sung a favor. Shin asked Ki-hoon who was stronger between him and Sung. Ki-hoon tactfully expressed his opinion, but Shin was clear in his mind and determined to recruit this man into their guild. Today, the leaders of two major guilds gathered at the entrance of the Hunter Association because Sung was coming for a re-evaluation. Unexpectedly, many journalists were already there, attracted by the newly discovered A-rank hunter, the celebrity Min Sung. Shin and Taiga both claimed they didn't know Min Sung, disappointing the journalists who then left. After mocking each other about their efforts to recruit Sung, both leaders waited for his arrival. Sung was confused by the crowd at the entrance, where Min Sung had started a press conference announcing his departure from the entertainment industry to fight under the guild leader's command, having only signed a 2-year contract. He planned to return to showbiz after his scandals were forgotten, leveraging his A-rank hunter status. As Sung tried to enter the association for his test, Min Sung's people blocked him. The guild president personally came out to greet him and publicly scolded Min Sung, instructing him not to hold a press conference there. He then kindly led Sung inside, while Akira stood guard at the door, intimidating Min Sung into silence. Inside, Taiga and Shin respectfully waited, as they were also there for the test results. Upon request, Sung summoned a shadow creature, but after the president reviewed the report submitted by Akira, it was clear Sung's powers exceeded this. Sung then summoned a whole room full of shadows, suggesting he could summon about 100 more, shocking everyone with his magical capacity, which surpassed theirs. Just how powerful was Sung? After the assessment was completed, Sung received his new hunter license, officially making him an S-rank hunter. The president expressed his anticipation for the great deeds Sung would accomplish with this power, unaware that Sung was mainly thinking about selling the greed pearl to buy gear. On his way out, he encountered Taiga and Shin again, both eagerly vying to recruit him into their guilds. Sung made an excuse and left, only to face a barrage of questions from reporters as he stepped outside. The live broadcast made the news and was seen by those who knew Sung, introducing the 10th S-rank hunter, Sung. Meanwhile, Kenta was being scolded by his father for failing to recruit Sung into their guild, and instead being recruited by Sung. His father was furious, having originally assigned this plan to Kenta's brother. Kenta had taken initiative midway, but not only did he fail to produce results, he was now ready to leave everything behind to follow someone else. Despite this, Kenta remained determined to follow Sung. Meanwhile, Surrounded by reporters, Sung was approached by Taiga, who offered to drive him home. Sung simply said, "No need," and the next second, he teleported out of the crowd, put on his hood, and left quietly. Shin was shocked, amazed that someone with such physical prowess was still a mage-type hunter. Taiga looked even more incredulous, barely catching Sung's movement. He could feel that Sung had become even stronger. After leaving the association, Sung went directly to the hunter auction house to buy some equipment. After stating his needs, the clerk showed him a cloak and a matching ring, but the price made Sung wince. Knowing he was dealing with the new S-rank hunter, the clerk jokingly said if Sung could break the glass there, he could have them for free. Sung took him seriously and raised his fist, but the clerk quickly stopped him, explaining it was just a joke. However, after Sung moved to the weapons section, the clerk noticed a crack in the supposedly strongest glass in the store, which had cracked without even being touched. Sung casually picked up a dagger and asked for the price. Surprised at the high cost for a dagger only as strong as Kasaka's Venom Fang, he took out a dagger he had bought in the system store for 2.8 million gold coins. To his surprise, the clerk offered 1 billion for it. Now Sung wasn't worried about money anymore, and even decided against buying the greed pearl. He could just flip items and buy all the equipment he wanted. Meanwhile, Taiga sat alone in his office, contemplating a bold guess. Perhaps Sung wasn't just experiencing a second awakening, but was a hunter who could continuously grow. Since Sung's identity had been exposed, reporters occasionally staked out near his house, causing distress for Aoi. Now, the instigator, Sung's brother, said he was going out for another week. Just then, Kenta came over, and Sung introduced him as his co-worker, leaving Kenta unable to contradict his elder brother. That night, Sung summoned his newly acquired orc soldiers, assigning one to protect Aoi and taking the others to patrol the city. The next day, he and Kenta set off. On the road, Kenta revealed that he had run away from home after an argument with his father. After bringing Sung to his destination, Kenta left, as Sung preferred to level up alone. Sung returned to the City of Demons, confident that this time he would not fail. Upon entering, he received a new mission: to defeat the Demon King Balam and collect his soul. The reward offered was the top-tier Shadow Exchange Resonite and an enhancement of abilities, including a skill exclusive to his profession, which was more generous than the previous rewards. Excited, Sung instantly teleported to the highest floor he had reached before, the 76th. Sung chose not to confront the enemy himself initially. He summoned Kiba to battle the immense monster on that floor. Kiba, roughly the same size as the enemy but wielding the Greed Pearl, incinerated the opponent in one strike. Sung decided then to let Kiba keep the Greed Pearl. Meanwhile, Kenta's father suddenly fainted at home and was taken to the hospital by his wife, where he was diagnosed with drowsy sickness, the same illness affecting Sung's mother. This disease, often striking those with low magical resistance or those exposed to magic over long periods, suggested that Kenta, a B-rank hunter, might have inadvertently caused his father's condition. This left Kenta's father feeling complex emotions. In a world filled with magic, his lack of magical resistance felt like abandonment. At the same time, Sung was idly managing his tasks in the Demon City. He split his shadow soldiers into 6 squads with 2 orders: to kill all visible enemies and to notify him if they found an access permit. Initially, the operation was efficient, but after reaching the 80th floor 2 days ago, progress stalled. Sung noticed his magical power dropping rapidly, a sign that his soldiers were under attack. It was the Orc Squad A. He rushed to check on them and soon learned that Squad B was also attacked. Curiously, the attack occurred further from Squad A, stationed near Kiba. Could the enemy know they couldn't defeat Kiba, indicating their intelligence? Sung concluded the next target would undoubtedly be the Polar Bear Squad. Rushing to the Polar Bear Squad's location, Sung arrived just in time to witness several armored soldiers slaughtering his shadow soldiers. Deciding to intervene personally, he quickly killed 2 of the foot soldiers and, with his aura fully unleashed, slowly advanced towards the enemy leader, who retreated in fear. This confirmed Sung's curiosity. Even magical beasts can feel fear. The boss on the 80th floor of the Demon Castle turned out to be a beautiful girl. Sung himself fought fiercely with the White Knight and ultimately proved to be more superior. He grabbed the opponent's mask with one hand and thrust his sword with the other. However, just then, the opponent surrendered and begged Sung to spare her life. Sung lifted the helmet, revealing a face of a terrified young girl underneath. After she pleaded for mercy in a subdued tone, Sung put away his dagger. But as soon as he turned away, the girl attempted a sneak attack, only to be repelled by a shield instantly deployed by Kiba. The girl, flexible in her approach, immediately knelt down and offered anything in exchange for her life. Sung, somewhat speechless at her shamelessness, asked if she could get him a floor access permit. Surprisingly, her family was in charge of the permits, and she also knew the locations of other permits. Sung questioned if he could trust her, his formidable aura ensuring she dared not lie. The girl introduced herself as Ash, the eldest daughter of the Rattler family. Unlike other demonic bosses who had spoken of killing humans, she heard a different command: protect our domain. Before arriving here, Ash and her family were in the demon world, and one day they found themselves transported here without explanation. Sung inquired about their activities in the demon world, triggering Ash to respond mechanically about preparing for a war against a formidable enemy that required rallying all demons. They were on the eve of battle when suddenly the conversation was blocked due to exceeding the allowable range of disclosed information, and Ash fainted. Once Ash woke up, Sung had her lead him to her family's castle, where her father, the Lord, instantly recognized the countless armies lurking in Sung's shadow and surrounded him with soldiers. Sung remained calm, stating he had made a deal with Ash. As long as they handed over the access permit, he would not harm them. Realizing his position, Ash's father complied and handed over the permit. When Sung mentioned he would need to borrow his daughter, her father nearly lost his composure. However, since Sung guaranteed her safety, he reluctantly agreed, though Ash blushed deeply at this arrangement. With the location provided by Ash, Sung quickly arrived at the 89th floor. Jaegerit and the polar bear had both upgraded too, now ranked as S-class and A-class respectively, since floors above 90 are managed by high-ranking nobles. Ash even brought gifts, though Sung felt they were unnecessary in a place where strength spoke louder. Hearing that Ash's family was competing in rankings with other demon nobles, Sung promised to make her family #1 and expressed his fondness for Ash, instantly winning the demon girl's heart. However, he sent Ash back as the next floors would be even more dangerous. Ash insisted on going with him, wanting to see how far Sung could go. Sung relented and took her along. From the 90th floor, the difficulty indeed increased sharply. The strength and number of the guardian monsters were vastly different from before. Despite this, Sung continued his ascent, determined to obtain the Water of Life. Meanwhile, the disaster caused by the ant monsters continued to grow, with hundreds of civilians and several hunters already casualties. It took an A-class hunter who arrived last to kill just one of these ants, indicating their strength was at least A-class, and they had also developed the ability to fly. Consequently, the president of the Hunters Association immediately ordered the 4th Jeju Island raid. All S-class hunters, including Shin, were summoned. This time, they were to coordinate with a neighboring country. Hunters from a major guild had already arrived in the country. This man was Goto, the president of the Japanese Sword Guild, which boasts 11 S-class hunters and is the second largest in Asia. The dissection of the ant monsters conducted by their guild led to two crucial findings: the lifespan of these creatures and their behavioral patterns. Ants rapidly mature after hatching, but only live for about a year. Thus, eliminating the queen could naturally eradicate the remaining ants after a year. The second finding was that these ants are attracted to powerful enemies or magical forces. This behavior could be exploited to formulate a battle strategy. Goto proposed that his guild could draw out all the ants with 10 S-class hunters, hoping the association would seize the opportunity to kill the queen. This strategy, modeled by AI, had the highest success rate, and the president agreed to it immediately. Meanwhile, Sung finally reached the 100th floor, a desolate place. Suddenly, a dragon with wings flashing with lightning swooped down, bringing a tornado with it as an intimidation to Sung. Mounted on the dragon was the ultimate boss of the demon castle, Demon Lord Balaam. Ash, much weaker, was nearly overwhelmed by the murderous aura. Balaam made the first move, wielding a giant sword and conjuring countless portals in the air and on the ground. Demons poured continuously from them and quickly surrounded the pair. Sung immediately activated his monarch's domain, summoning his shadow soldiers, plunging the scene into a massive melee. However, the soldiers couldn't threaten Balaam in the air. Ash found herself conflicted. Balaam was the lord of this place, and Sung, the invader. As a demon herself, whose side should she take? During her deliberation, Balaam spewed a ball of thunder and lightning, exploding into a mushroom cloud high above and raining down fiery lightning bolts, annihilating any soldier caught in the blast. Ash nearly got hit too, but but Sung shielded her with his cloak just in time. Sung, unconcerned with comforting Ash, knew this wide-range stunning attack was difficult to counter. If Balaam kept using it, his mana would quickly deplete. He needed to defeat Balaam before that happened. Sung sprinted, accelerating and suddenly turning invisible, pushing off the ground towards the sky, aiming to sever the dragon's wings first. Unexpectedly, Balaam saw through his invisibility, not only knocking him away with a sword but also sending after him a tracking lightning. Sung had to flee awkwardly, calling Kiba and Jaegerit to action. Kiba unleashed flame magic to counter the lightning, while Sung secretly threw a dagger hidden within it, beheading the dragon. Balaam and the dragon's body crashed down together. Now it was the Demon Lord's turn to look up at Sung. However, Balaam's close combat skills were formidable. Sung was fully engaged, with no chance to use potions to restore his mana. As Balaam launched another lightning attack, Kiba swiftly deployed a protective barrier to block it. Agile Jaegerit took the opportunity to approach the enemy. Unexpectedly, Kiba and the shield were annihilated together. Ayn, wielding a giant axe, was pierced by a sword. Jaegerit's sneak attack was also detected, and Sung lost 3 strong allies in quick succession. Furious, Sung struck directly at Balaam's vital spot, but it was blocked. Balaam then grabbed Sung by his hair, but before he could swing his sword, Sung had already plunged 2 daggers into his arms. The resurrected shadow soldiers then tightly restrained Balaam from behind. Balaam let out an angry roar, and blinding white lightning instantly enveloped them. The shadow soldiers vanished again, and Sung's mana was completely depleted. Then, Balaam pulled out 2 daggers, and a new battle was on the verge of breaking out. Amidst the storm, both figures suddenly disappeared and clashed fiercely the next second. Their figures crisscrossed in the air, the fight growing more intense. Each thrust targeted vital points. However, Sung's sword was knocked away first. Balaam raised his right hand to strike, but Sung caught his arm barehanded, preventing further movement. But he forgot Balaam could emit lightning. There was no escape. At this critical moment, Ash threw her weapon to distract Balaam. Seizing the opportunity, Sung used Ruler's Hand and forcibly tore off both of Balaam's arms. He then punched Balaam's chin, causing his head to explode. Lightning shot up into the sky, and the headless body collapsed. Sung won. Balaam's soul was also extracted to become a new shadow soldier. As dawn broke, Ash hurried over. Sung told her with a smile that her family was now the #1 ranked family. Sung also collected all the ingredients needed to make the water of life. The success rate and quantity of the product depended on intelligence, but Sung did not hesitate to click create. Fortunately, it was successful, and he obtained 6 bottles of the water of life, more than enough to treat his mother. At that moment, Ain dragged over the dragon's body. Sung praised him for his rare cleverness, and then extracted the dragon's shadow, naming it Cather. Ash suggested going back to their castle for a party, but Sung was preoccupied with thoughts of his mother. He remembered a reward from a mission, a rune stone, which granted him a new skill, Shadow Swap, to exchange places with a shadow soldier. Sung said goodbye to Ash and swapped places with a patrolling soldier, instantly returning to the initial floor. The rest of the way, he would ride back on the dragon. Meanwhile, the president of the Hunters Association couldn't reach Sung. A battle was imminent, and without Sung's strength, it would be challenging. Taiga had arranged to meet a friend for drinks. The man across from him was Min, an S-class healer and a hunter who had retired young and intact. Another teammate of theirs had died under an ant's foot, so Min didn't want Taiga to join the battle. But how could Taiga abandon the people? Even if this mission was one way, he was there to say goodbye to Min. Min, however, mentioned he was planning to become a civil servant because he no longer wanted to see such bloody scenes. Perhaps that was normal. Taiga had rarely seen hunters who disliked fighting beasts. In fact, many hunters enjoyed battling. Could that be the condition for awakening? Meanwhile, as soon as Sung left the demon castle, he went to the hospital to visit his mother. Her neck bore many scars from a burn caused by Sung when he was a child, but she had never blamed him. Sung took out a bottle of the water of life, choosing to believe that the system would bring a miracle. With trembling hands, he fed the water to his mother. As soon as he did, her body emitted a glow, and the scars on her neck instantly disappeared. Sung, filled with hope, didn't know whom to pray to, silently wishing for his mother to wake up quickly. All his efforts to grow stronger were for her. Unbeknownst to him, dawn came and sunlight streamed in through the window. Sung suddenly opened his eyes and found his mother sitting up in bed, looking at him tenderly. She hardly recognized him, as he had changed so much. Upon learning she had been asleep for 4 years, she lovingly touched Sung's face. understanding the hardships he must have faced during those years. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sung could no longer hold back his tears. The relief of having his mother awake made all the hardships worthwhile. The doctors soon became aware of her miraculous recovery. After examining her and finding no abnormalities, they were astounded. Aoi also came and wept in her mother's arms. Standing by, Sung silently reflected on having finally received his true reward. At the same time, the Hunters Association held a press conference to announce the initiation of the 4th Jeju Island raid. Min watched the live broadcast on his phone and remembered a conversation with a deceased comrade, also on the eve of a mission. Min had expressed his fear, and his companion had admitted feeling the same, but pointed out that those who couldn't fight were far more frightened. Such tasks, they concluded, could only be undertaken by those with the power. Min then looked over at Taiga, who was soundly asleep, realizing that he also needed looking after. In crucial moments, only the two of them could support each other. Now, only Min was left. Sung and Aoi brought their mother home from the hospital, only to find the house in disarray. The first thing the reunited family did was a big cleanup, creating a joyful atmosphere. This was the scene Sung had always longed for, yet he felt uneasy. During his time as a hunter, had he crossed a line he shouldn't have? Suddenly, his mother interrupted his thoughts, picking up a family photo from the cabinet and asking if his father had been in touch. Sung's silence gave her the answer. However, she'd also learned from the TV that her son had become a hunter, remarking that he had truly inherited his father's genes. Just then, Sung received a call and a summoning from the Hunters Association. Before, he would not have missed this chance to level up, but now, with his mother awake, he didn't want to take any more risks. The next second, he sensed a magical wavelength. The president laughed heartily, telling him that the S-Class hunters were stretching at the gymnasium and invited him to come and see. Unable to resist the temptation, Sung went. At the gym, Taiga was sparring with Machida from the Meijo Guild. It seemed Taiga was being overpowered, but Shin, who approached, explained that Taiga was holding back because it was inconvenient to show his full strength in front of so many people. When Taiga fought with all his might, he became a true monster. Then Goto arrived with the S-Class hunters from Japan. Seeing Taiga and Machida sparring, the Japanese hunters looked disappointed. Is that all? The two groups eyed each other unfavorably. Seeing a perfect opportunity, Goto suggested a friendly competition between the sides, with the Hunters Association deciding the format. They agreed to exclude mage-type and non-combat hunters, allowing only combat hunters to participate. It would be a grand melee with each country fielding 4 people. The competition was about to begin. The sparring between 8 S-Class hunters from 2 countries is about to begin, and Sung is eagerly looking forward to it. Unfortunately, President Goto has not participated. Machida started off aggressively, his size alone putting him in a different league compared to others. Each side chose an opponent for a one-on-one duel. Machida's opponent was also a powerfully built strongman. Their fists flew like a tempest, striking at each other. Meanwhile, 2 agile fighters competed nearby. During a moment of distraction for the strongmen, Machida suddenly descended from above, stomping the floor, reinforced with the highest grade magic stone, into a huge crater. The president was sweating profusely on the spot, as all the hunters present were top tier even among the S-Class, especially Taiga. At this point, Taiga had partially transformed into a beast, his sharp claws reaching for a long-haired man wearing a mask, causing the latter to retreat repeatedly. He didn't seem like a combative hunter. Taiga guessed that President Goto wanted to use them to test the resolve of his guild members to see if they were ready to fight against the ants. Thus, he didn't hold back. His hands fully transformed into beast claws, and he lunged after the masked man. Meanwhile, Machida had been thrown to the ground, and the agile fighters had settled their match. The 2 winners immediately went to help their teammate handle Taiga. Shizuku, however, was overpowering her opponent and quickly went to assist Taiga. Unexpectedly, the masked man launched a sneak attack from behind. Shizuku swiftly turned and countered, her deadly series of claw strikes leaving the masked man's face bloodied, which only enraged him further. His teammates worried he might go berserk, as he seemed to transform into a different person when enraged. Shizuku was quickly overwhelmed. Just as her opponent was about to land a heavy blow, Sung could no longer watch from the sidelines and intervened. He protected Shizuku with one arm while blocking the masked man's leg with the other. When the opponent turned to attack him, Sung showed no mercy, grabbing the enraged masked man, pinning him to the ground, and locking his arms behind his back. President Goto, having witnessed everything, could not believe that Sung was merely a mage. The battle ended with Taiga and his team's defeat, prompting Goto to enter the arena, expressing a desire to spar with Sung. Sensing Goto's full combat spirit, Sung couldn't help but smile slightly, eager to test how much his strength had improved after conquering the demon castle. Goto frowned at Sung's smile, feeling underestimated and insisted that Sung give his all. Accepting the challenge without courtesy, Goto was curious, especially Taiga, who suspected that Sung was an awakener capable of continuous growth. As this thought crossed his mind, the duel on the field began. Goto, caught off guard, threw the first punch, but Sung easily dodged it. How could such speed and movement belong to a mage? Intent on exposing Sung's true nature, Goto intensified his attacks. While he was indeed formidable compared to other S-class hunters, to Sung, the difference was minor. Sung's smile widened as he continuously dodged, with Goto relentlessly attacking. However, Shizuku noticed that Sung was not merely dodging. He was assessing Goto's strength, which only infuriated Goto more. Suddenly, Goto used a burst of speed to appear directly in front of Sung and struck with his palm. However, once the smoke cleared, Goto's palm was firmly gripped by Sung, unable to move forward an inch. Sung remained at ease, chiding Goto for nearly damaging his eye. Though he only sustained a cut on his face, Goto felt even more humiliated because Sung was holding his hand, not his wrist, clearly going easy on him. Thus, both prepared to unleash their full power, but fortunately, fellow hunters intervened, preventing the destruction of the training ground. Sung had assessed everyone's strength and secretly had his shadow soldiers infiltrate the shadows of 5 people. After sending off the foreign hunters, Sung met with the president and declined the request for a sudden mission on Jedju Island. He wanted to spend time with his family, especially since his mother had just awoken from a 4-year coma. At this time on Jedju Island, with civilians evacuated and insufficient food, the ant monsters began cannibalizing each other. This situation was unsustainable. The queen ant decided to leave the island, wanting a stronger child to lead her subjects. Finally, this child broke through its soft shell with sharp claws, its body quickly turning from bright red to black. Its appearance was eerily human-like as it stood upright, emitting a terrifying howl. Meanwhile, news reports are broadcasting the situation of the ant monsters to the public in real time. They are evolving at an alarming rate. During the 3rd Jedju Island raid, they were still crawling on the ground, but now they can all fly, causing widespread panic among the citizens. Considering the possibility of the ants landing on the mainland, the Hunters Association is calling on all hunters to join the watch posts. Sung's former teammates have also responded to the call. Today is the day of the raid. Several fleets are gradually arriving near the waters of Jedju Island. The hunters at these watch posts are tasked with preventing the ants from flying off the island. Meanwhile, on the island, Taiga encounters an unexpected person, his good friend Min, the only S-class healer in the country. His presence boosts everyone's morale like a shot of adrenaline. On the other hand, S-class hunters from a neighboring country are serving as a decoy force, having divided into groups to penetrate different areas of the island. In addition to the S-class hunters, there is a photographer responsible for live broadcasting from a helicopter. Machida, aboard the helicopter, fervently hopes this will be the last raid and mentions that if they fail, their country might literally disappear from the map. The attack team is ready, and at the president's command, the decoy force immediately releases a surge of magical energy to attract the monsters. A swarm of red ants flies out from the center of the island, some heading towards the helicopters in the air, but Shin quickly dispatches them with a blast of fire magic. Shin is filled with emotion. They have finally returned to this land, and this time, they must kill the queen ant. The attack team sets off. Meanwhile, the fleet activates jamming signals, preventing the ants from receiving the queen's distress signals. Ordinary ant monsters are no match for the S-class hunters, who mow them down effortlessly, even remarking that they might eliminate all the ants before the attack team even reaches the queen. At the same time, Taiga and his team have entered the ant nest. Shin directly shoots flames into the holes, causing thick smoke to billow from almost all of them, except for one. This indicates it's the deepest and most likely the queen's chamber. Elsewhere, Sung has just completed his daily tasks and naturally thinks about the raid, but then he reflects that those S-class hunters are very strong, and presumably, they can complete the mission successfully even without him. In fact, the attack team was making smooth progress and quickly reached the egg-laying chamber, which was filled with ant eggs. Among them, one egg significantly larger than the others had already hatched. Meanwhile, a 3-person squad outside was casually chatting when suddenly, one of their heads exploded without any sight of the enemy. Sensing danger, the burly man was just about to react when his head also exploded. The last member saw a flash of red light and immediately gave chase, drawing his sword to attack. However, before he could act, his head was not spared either. The mysterious red light swiftly claimed the heads of 3 S-class hunters. Unaware of this, the attack team was engaged in a fierce battle with the guarding white ants, each possessing S-class strength. Fortunately, their predictable behavior made them no match for the hunters skilled in team combat. During a standoff with a white ant, Shizuku dramatically descended from above and cleaved the enemy in two. With a healer providing support from behind, they quickly eliminated all the white ants. However, encountering increasingly strong monsters indicated they were heading in the right direction. Shizuku could smell the strong scent of a powerful beast deep within the cave, and Taiga's eyes also confirmed it. The queen ant was ahead, surrounded by numerous S-class guardian beasts, but with their lineup, they could win. Outside, another squad found their teammates' shattered glasses, but had no time to figure out what happened. The mage in the group suddenly seemed overwhelmed, breaking out in cold sweat and smelling an indescribable odor. He hysterically unleashed a tremendous burst of ice, encasing himself within it, but the ice shattered in the next second along with him. With two squads now unaccounted for, the other teams had no time to worry about others. The attack team finally faced the queen ant. Shield bearer Machida took the lead, charging to the front, while Shin unleashed his maximum firepower, wiping out swarms of lesser ants. However, the stronger white ants broke through. It was Taiga's turn to shine. His body fully transformed into a terrifying white tiger. He grabbed a white ant in each hand and smashed them together, killing both instantly. The photographer was instructed to move closer for a better shot, as the entire nation awaited this battle. However, Min pulled him back a step for his safety, advising him to stay back. Red ants continued to emerge from beneath the queen, nearly engulfing Machida, but with a sudden burst of energy, he sent the surrounding ants flying. The archer released a volley of arrows, with Taiga maneuvering through the arrows and ants. The number of ants was overwhelming, necessitating fire support from Shin and the agile Shizuku, whose every sword strike hit its mark. The S-class hunters worked seamlessly together, finally killing the last guard ants. The final showdown with the queen ant began. Machida raised his shield to block the queen's sharp mandibles, signaling the start of a full assault. The archer shot first, his arrows piercing the queen's massive body, turning her into a porcupine. Taiga relentlessly attacked the vulnerable target. Unexpectedly, the angry queen spewed corrosive venom that struck several frontline hunters, but Min's healing covered them in the next second. The queen attempted to eliminate the healer first, but Machida quickly shielded Min. During the standoff, Shin unleashed his most potent flames, which erupted over the queen's body. Surprisingly, her defenses held, and she attempted to flee. Shin continued firing fireballs, while Machida and Taiga held the queen down. Shizuku seized the opportunity, leaping up and severing all of the queen's legs with her sword, causing the massive body to crash to the ground. Shizuku then descended from above and beheaded the queen with a single stroke. The battle was over. Everyone cheered for the hunters, as the death of the queen meant the remaining ants would die off within a year. However, Taiga felt uneasy. The queen's final howl seemed like a cry for help. Could there be an existence even stronger than the queen ant? Meanwhile, headquarters discovered that all the ants were heading back to their nest. The jamming signals had completely failed, and the flame barrier set by Shin was instantly broken. Swarms of ants returned. Soon after, all hunters in the attack team felt a terrifying presence, a black, humanoid ant. As soon as it appeared, Shizuku was overwhelmed by its suffocating pressure, freezing everyone in place. Machida was the first to recover, but as he took a step forward, he envisioned himself being crushed. However, the black ant walked past him to the queen's corpse, took a few bites, and emitted a piercing scream. It then instantly appeared behind Shizuku and struck her with a palm, sending her flying. Machida, now enlarged, raised his shield, but it shattered along with his arm. Yet, he immediately switched arms and struck at the enemy, paying the same price with his other hand. Taiga and Shin were slashed across the chest, bleeding profusely, and the archer was flung aside carelessly. But Machida was quickly healed, thanks to their S-class healer, Min, who also used an invisibility skill. Even with his enlarged form, Machida was swung around like a baseball bat by the black ant. The next second, the black ant targeted Min, piercing his chest from behind. Min managed to utter, "Run, Lu Hao," before his head was crushed in a bite. Taiga, in a frenzy, charged at the black ant, but was lifted by the neck, his transformation reversing. At that moment, the black ant surprisingly spoke human language, repeating Min's last words several times as if learning to speak. It stammered that Taiga and his team were too weak. Having sacrificed the queen, merely killing human soldiers was not worth it. It demanded to know where the human king was. Sensing the presence of a stronger individual, it immediately released Taiga and left. Taiga thought it meant Goto. Now, all members of the attack team had sustained critical injuries, and with continuous swarms of ants returning, they needed to leave quickly. Meanwhile, Goto's group finally located their missing teammates, but Goto was indifferent. He learned from their guild president that all the ants had returned to their nest. Knowing the attack team's strength, he estimated their survival rate as 0. His companions were satisfied upon hearing this, realizing that this neighboring country had harbored ill intentions from the start. waiting for the Allied forces to be completely wiped out before their second attack team, stationed at sea, would strike Jedju Island. This strategy was aimed at gradually weakening the neighboring country's power, allowing their nation to conquer the S-class portal. The president instructed Goto and his team to retreat and meet up with the second attack team at sea. However, before they could leave, the Black Ant appeared and instantly killed a hunter. Goto remained calm, urging another teammate to escape quickly, choosing to face the Black Ant alone. The Black Ant asked Goto if he was the king, and Goto admitted it without hesitation. Yet, the next moment, he sensed a magical power in the Black Ant similar to what he had felt in Sung before. On the other side, the attack team was nearly incapacitated, relying only on Shin's firepower for defense, but Shin was reaching his limit. Just then, several shadow soldiers emerged from the shadows of the few remaining team members to create a protective barrier for them. Far away in the city, Sung finally made a decision: exchange. Just as the S-rank attack team was on the verge of being wiped out, Sung finally led the Shadow Army to the scene. Ignoring the shocked faces behind him, Sung moved straight to the front. Outside the battlefield, chaos ensued as the live broadcast suddenly stopped. Viewers bombarded the TV station with calls, demanding an immediate resumption of the live coverage. The station staff were panicked, unaware of what was happening, and fearing the worst for the S-rank hunters. Fortunately, it was just a camera malfunction. Sung called out Ain's name and issued an attack command. Jaegerit charged ahead, slicing through red ants, with Ain following closely. Kiba covered the rear, protecting the injured S-rank hunters from approaching ants. Sung had no time to explain, and began administering healing potions personally, as items from the system store couldn't be transferred. After drinking the potions, everyone quickly recovered except for Shizuku, whose injuries were too severe. As her condition worsened, Sung suggested they move quickly and offered to clear a path, but more ants kept pouring in. The guild president was also anxious, but unable to contact the attack team. He ordered the medical and recovery teams to be ready to deploy at any moment, sincerely praying for everyone's safe return. The situation in the neighboring country was also dire, as they lost contact with Goto. From the last communication before the signal interference and the strong enemy reaction at that moment, it appeared he had been killed. Everyone outside was unaware of what was happening on the island, while the battle inside continued. Jaegerit and Ain were managing well, but the infantry struggled against the ants. After a moment of hesitation, Sung decided to show his strength, instructing the S-rank hunters to follow Kiba while he cleared the way. He warned them to keep what they were about to see confidential. After giving this caution, Sung began extracting shadows from the ants. However, in the next second, all the ants stopped moving and parted to make way, bowing their heads. The black humanoid ant had returned. It complained that there was no king outside and asked if the king was here. Sung, with his aura fully unleashed, walked up to the enemy, taunting that a mere insect could talk, which instantly enraged the humanoid ant. It released a powerful breath as a deterrent, but Sung stood his ground, unmoved, and scoffed. An insect is just an insect. Meanwhile, the cameraman finally fixed the camera, and the live broadcast resumed. Everyone saw the S-rank hunter Sung standing there. Aoi was stunned. She had no idea when her brother had left. Only the guild president was ecstatic, confident that Sung would not stand idly by. The standoff between Sung and the Ant King finally ended. The Ant King threw the first punch, creating a shockwave that nearly overwhelmed Taiga and the others. However, Sung stood firm, spat, and formed his hand into a claw. The Ant King's body was enveloped by Sung's magical power. As Sung clenched his fist, the Ant King was forced to kneel and bow. Sung's following punch shocked everyone watching. They knew Sung was strong, but not to this extent. However, the Ant King was not easily defeated. The two engaged in a fierce fist fight, each blow carrying immense power, but the Ant King knew he was losing. Sung's punch landed on his stomach, sending shockwaves that pushed the Ant King back. Undeterred, the Ant King swung again, colliding fists with Sung. After they separated, Sung's next punch hit the Ant King's face. The Ant King retaliated by spitting out a long tongue that cut Sung's cheek, spreading poison instantly. The Ant King declared Sung's death sentence and stepped forward to deliver the final blow. Meanwhile, the neighboring country received news that 7 of their 10 S-rank hunters had been lost. A powerful individual suspected of killing Goto was heading toward the nest. The commander of the neighboring country thought if this powerful individual met the exhausted attack team, they would stand no chance against it. However, the ants would also be weakened from continuous fighting. They could potentially eliminate both threats in one go. The commander immediately ordered the rescue of the 3 surviving hunters to regroup with the second attack team at sea and strike again. But one of the 3 surviving hunters, having witnessed the Ant King's power, was terrified and refused to follow the plan. A female hunter harshly reprimanded him. With the situation as it was, they had no choice but to proceed. Unbeknownst to others, Sung was overwhelmingly dominating the Ant King. Sung firmly grasped the Ant King's attacking hand, pulled him close, and delivered a punch to his stomach, sending him flying again. Remember, poison and negative effects are useless against Sung. However, Shizuku still needed rescue urgently, so time was of the essence. Thus, Sung initiated the attack. Unexpectedly, the Ant King transformed. Sung also drew his weapon, crossed his arms to block the assault, and the 2 figures intertwined in the air. Each strike was lethal, mixed with magical outputs. The Ant King suddenly summoned ice pillars to disrupt Sung's movements. Sung momentarily retreated, collapsing the cave's ceiling to cover himself with dust and debris. The fight was evenly matched, with their speed nearly equal, making the Ant King's defenses gradually break down. Neither could inflict a fatal blow. Taiga and the others could only see flashes of red and blue light. Eventually, Sung gained the upper hand, seizing a momentary gap after blocking several attacks. He then launched a tempestuous assault on the Ant King's stomach, throwing a dagger with all his strength. The battered Ant King roared furiously and retaliated, his sharp claws aiming for Sung's eyes. But just before that, Sung received a notification of a skill level up. Critical hit, upgraded to Wild Slash. He immediately raised his sword and activated the new skill. The Ant King's hand was instantly sliced into several pieces. The skill reactivated, cutting the Ant King's body into pieces. However, he quickly used a healing skill and froze Sung in place, seizing the chance to flee. But Sung caught up in an instant, continuously activating his new skills. Green blood sprayed amidst the sword light. Finally, the Ant King, now limbless, fell heavily and questioned angrily, "Who exactly is this human?" Sung merely smirked. The battle was now left to the Shadow Soldiers. He intended to let the Ant King watch, as his subordinates were annihilated like mere ants. Oh, they were indeed just ants. Amid the raging flames, the Ant King stood up, filled with resentment. He believed he should be superior to all, a being destined to devour everything, grow continually, and ultimately reach the pinnacle. He was meant to be the king. As Sung approached, the Ant King's only thought was to escape. Just as he spread his wings to fly, Sung seized and slammed him to the ground. The Ant King scrambled to his feet, but Sung was relentless, always cutting down his foes completely. He drew his short sword and struck furiously, finally shattering the Ant King's tough shell, then easily defeating him. This battle was an absolute victory for Sung. With their leader gone, the other ants quickly retreated. However, Shizuku's life force was fading fast, too quickly for any chance of moving her. With no other option, Sung pulled out a bottle of life elixir. Unfortunately, the system indicated that this potion was not within the healing range and had no effect. The potion was useless, and the shadow exchange needed time to cool down. Was there really no other way? How exactly could Sung save Shizuku? First, he asked the cameraman to turn off the camera. Then, he ordered his subordinates to bring over Min's body. In front of everyone, he extracted Min's shadow. This scene left Taiga and the others stunned. Taiga murmured Min's name, but Min turned and walked towards Shizuku. Sung translated for him. He said, "Use my power." Then, Min unleashed his healing power, reviving Shizuku to full health without even waiting for Sung's instructions, a testament to his gentle nature. Meanwhile, the others had mixed feelings. No wonder Sung had always hidden his abilities. The more dire the battlefield, the stronger the power he could obtain. Such terrifying power must never be revealed. Taiga was more concerned about his friend, knowing Min disliked fighting. He pleaded with Sung not to let Min enter the battlefield again. Sung was pleased with Taiga's attitude, but he had never intended to make this S-rank healer his subordinate. After reviving Shizuku, Sung released the extraction, and before completely vanishing, Min gave Taiga one last smile. Meanwhile, the situation outside the island was also tense. The 3 surviving S-rank hunters from the neighboring country had returned to their ship. They were ordered to execute Plan 9, but the blonde hunter did not want to return. The liaison informed them that the new magical beast had already been killed by the attack team's hunters. The president of the neighboring country's hunter guild was shocked. Why had a hunter who hadn't been part of the combat suddenly appeared on the island? They had sent 10 and only 3 returned. while the only casualty on the other side was a healer. With this, the president reluctantly ordered a retreat. While the hunters stationed near the island were battling out-of-control red ants, the sheer number of these ants was overwhelming. All trying to escape, they had to contain the magical beasts right there. Taiga and his team quickly boarded a helicopter to urgently transport Shizuku back for medical treatment. However, Sung stayed behind to clear out the remaining enemy soldiers and their eggs. He was actually enjoying himself, surprised to find that destroying the unhatched eggs also yielded experience points. Sung also took this opportunity to test the Demon King's longsword, which seemed much more powerful than his previous short sword. The remaining ants were no match. Ain and the others dispatched them as if chopping vegetables. Sung's level rose to 100. Finally, he approached the Ant King's corpse to try extracting its shadow, only to find himself momentarily in a dark space before returning. A black fluid flew from the Ant King's body, forming a cocoon, from which the Ant King's shadow emerged. Sung was reassured and was about to continue extracting shadows from other ants when he suddenly heard the Ant King address him as King. The shadow could speak. The Ant King knelt on one knee and asked Sung to grant him a name. Sung realized he was a general-level shadow, the first he had subdued, but Sung wondered if it would willingly follow him, the one who killed it. The shadow explained that it hadn't died, but was reborn through the king's power, and was now joyful and would forever follow him. Sung named him Bell and continued extracting shadows from the other ants. However, the situation outside was grim. The uncontrolled red ants were about to breach the defenses. Seeing the hunters struggling, Sung sent Bell to handle it. Bell immediately rescued Sung's former teammates. They only saw a streak of blue light flashing through the air, where no red ant survived. Meanwhile, Shin and the others were trying to protect the helicopter, desperately maintaining a magical barrier, which eventually shattered due to the overwhelming number of ants. Just as the helicopter was about to be engulfed by a swarm of red ants, numerous bolts of electricity raced through the air, cooking the ants thoroughly. Taiga and his team looked back to see Sung and his shadow dragon. The clouds dispersed, and sunlight broke through, signaling that the battle was nearing its end. After the battle, most of the out-of-control ants were successfully contained by the hunters, minimizing the catastrophe on the mainland. All domestic S-rank hunters, except for Min, returned safely. Despite numerous sacrifices, they successfully prevented any threats from reaching beyond the island. Overall, it was a victory for humanity. Meanwhile, the hunters from the neighboring country, who had been waiting on the warship, could only use these red ants to stretch their muscles. One hunter unsheathed his twin swords, and instantly the red ants hundreds of miles away were engulfed in flames. He boasted that it was a pity it wasn't the black ant instead. That might have been more entertaining. Several days after the 4th Jedju Island raid mission ended, a monument was erected in the country to mourn the fallen. Many civilians and hunters went to pay their respects. Sung also attended, and the media immediately focused their cameras on him. Public opinion about him was mixed. While Sung had single-handedly changed the course of the battle, some questioned why he hadn't joined the fight from the beginning, suggesting that many casualties might have been prevented. Sung ignored these comments. On his way back, he passed by Taiga, who told him to hold his head high, reminding him that he was the one who ended the tragedy. After the memorial service, Sung was invited by the guild president for tea. The president sincerely thanked him and promised to repay him in the manner he wished someday. He then asked Sung about his future plans, now that everyone knew of his strength, and was curious what he would do with it. After a moment of reflection, Sung told the president that he wanted to establish his own guild. At the same time, the president of the Knights Guild was leading his subordinates to clear up the remnants and recover resources. Everyone was quietly doing their part. Suddenly, a burly man emerged from the cave and asked who they were. Before the hunters could respond, another mysterious figure in the shadows snapped his fingers, causing them all to collapse. This person's skin color was almost identical to the Ice King previously killed by Sung. The two seemed puzzled by the events, but showed no intention of interacting with humans. The older man left a message that the hunt will proceed as planned before departing through a portal. The burly man followed him into the red portal, unaware that Sung's father was secretly watching everything from the shadows. Elsewhere, Sung was stuck in traffic and decided to make a video call to Kenta. He informed him that the president of the Hunters Association had agreed to their establishment of a guild. Right after hanging up, he received another call from the president. It turned out the traffic jam was due to a B-class portal appearing ahead. Rather than waiting for other hunters to arrive, Sung decided to handle it himself. As he entered, the portal turned red, a sign he recognized as trouble, but he was used to it by now. With the exit blocked, he found himself in a dense forest. unsure how long it would take to resolve the situation. He wished he had told his mother he'd be home late for dinner. Sung immediately summoned his shadow soldiers. Another round of conquest for the Shadow King had begun. After witnessing Sung's true strength, Shizuku resolved to become stronger so she could stand alongside him. Sung quickly dispatched all the minions. Rain soaked his shirt, revealing his well-defined chest muscles. He loosened his tie and looked ahead. Who would be his next prey?